The boy walked onto the stage. Before he sang a single note, he pulled out his father's ring. And Simon Cowell stood up from the judges' table. America's Got Talent. The Dolby Theater in Los Angeles. Tuesday night. Season auditions. The familiar rhythm of the show, hopeful performers, buzzer threats, golden buzzer dreams. Thousands had auditioned. Hundreds had been sent home. A few dozen had made it through. This was supposed to be audition number 847 of the season. A 12-year-old boy from Ohio. Piano and vocals. The kind of act the show had seen 1,000 times before. But sometimes a simple piece of jewelry changes everything. The boy's name was Ethan Miller. He walked onto that massive stage wearing jeans and a button-down shirt that was probably his best shirt, the one his mom had ironed that morning in their hotel room. His dark hair was neatly combed. His hands were shaking. Terry Crews greeted him with his trademark energy. "Welcome to America's Got Talent! What's your name?" "Ethan Miller." His voice was quiet, almost swallowed by the size of the theater. "And how old are you, Ethan?" 12. 12 years old. "And what are you going to do for us today?" Ethan looked at the judges' table. At Simon Cowell sitting in his usual position, arms crossed, that familiar expression of measured skepticism. At Howie, Heidi, and Sophia, all smiling encouragingly. "I'm going to sing and play piano," Ethan said. Then he did something unexpected. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. A simple gold wedding band. He held it up so the judges could see it. "But first I need to show you this." Simon Cowell has watched thousands of performances over the years, but none of them started like this. A 12-year-old boy showed his father's ring before singing a note, and Simon stood up from the judges' table. Simon's entire posture changed. His arms uncrossed. He leaned forward in his chair, his eyes locked on that ring catching the stage lights. "Hold on," Simon said, his voice cutting through the theater. "Wait. What is that?" Ethan's hand trembled slightly as he held the ring. "This was my dad's wedding ring. He died 8 months ago. He told me." Ethan's voice cracked, but he pushed through. "He told me that if I ever got scared doing something brave, I should wear his ring. So I'd remember he's still with me." The theater went completely silent. 4,000 people in the audience stopped moving. The other judges exchanged glances. Terry Crews, standing to the side, visibly fighting tears. Simon stood up. Not the casual standing he sometimes did during performances. This was immediate, urgent. His chair scraped backward. He stepped out from behind the judge's desk and walked toward the stage. Howie looked at him, confused. "Simon?" Simon didn't respond. He walked to the edge of the stage, looking up at Ethan. "Come here," he said quietly. "Come to the edge." Ethan walked forward, still clutching the ring. Simon's voice was softer than anyone in that theater had ever heard it. "What was your father's name?" "Daniel. Daniel Miller." "And what did he do?" "He was a firefighter. He died in a building collapse. He went in to save someone and—" Ethan couldn't finish. Simon nodded slowly. "And he gave you that ring?" "Not exactly. My mom gave it to me after the funeral. She said Dad told her once that if anything ever happened to him, she should give it to me when I was ready to do something that scared me. Because he wanted me to know that being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you do it anyway." Simon stopped the show. No one knew what was happening. The control room was in chaos. Director eyes on monitors, producers talking frantically into headsets. What is Simon doing? Do we cut? Do we? Keep rolling, the executive producer said quietly. Just keep rolling. Simon stood at the edge of the stage, looking at this 12-year-old boy holding his dead father's wedding ring, and made a decision that would define the next 10 minutes of television. "Ethan," Simon said, "before you perform, I need to tell you something. And I need everyone here to hear it." He turned to address the entire theater. I've been a judge on this show for years. I've seen thousands of acts. I've heard every sob story, every tragedy, every attempt to manipulate emotion. And I've become hardened to it, I suppose. Skeptical. Always looking for the performance behind the performance. He looked back at Ethan. But what you just did, showing us that ring, telling us about your father, that wasn't manipulation. That was courage. Real courage. The kind your father was talking about. Ethan nodded, tears streaming down his face. I want you to sing. Simon continued. I want you to perform. But I want you to do something first. I want you to tell us about your dad. Not the tragedy. Not how he died. Tell us who he was. What he loved. What made him laugh. The producers were screaming into headsets. This wasn't how the show worked. They had a schedule. Time limits. Commercial breaks. This was live television, and Simon Cowell had just thrown out the entire format. But Ethan started talking. My dad loved terrible jokes, Ethan said, a small smile breaking through the tears. Like really bad ones. He'd tell them at dinner and my mom would groan and I'd pretend they weren't funny, but they kind of were. And he loved music. He couldn't play anything or sing, but he loved listening. He'd play piano music while he cooked breakfast on Sundays. Chopin mostly. He said it made scrambled eggs taste better. The audience laughed, that warm, emotional laugh that comes through tears. He taught me that being a firefighter wasn't about being fearless. It was about being more afraid of doing nothing than doing something. He said courage was a choice you make every single day. Simon listened, arms crossed again, but his expression had completely changed. This wasn't Judge Simon Cowell. This was a man genuinely moved by a child's grief and strength. And the last thing he said to me, Ethan continued, his voice barely holding together, was don't stop playing piano. Promise me. So I promised. And 3 months after he died, I saw the America's Got Talent audition announcement, and I thought, Dad would want me to try. Even though I'm terrified. Even though I'm just a kid from Ohio who's not even that good. He'd want me to be brave. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this performance is still ahead. Simon walked back to the judge's table but didn't sit down. He stood behind his chair, hands gripping the back of it. Ethan, I need to ask you something. Is your mother here? Yes. She's in the audience. Can we bring her down? I'd like her to hear this too. The cameras found Ethan's mother in the audience, a woman in her late 30s, mascara already ruined, clutching the armrests of her seat. A production assistant guided her down to the front, and she stood at the base of the stage near Simon. Simon addressed her directly. Mrs. Miller, I never met your husband. But based on what your son just told us, he was the kind of man we need more of in this world. The kind who teaches his kid that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to act despite it. She nodded, unable to speak. Simon looked back at Ethan. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to perform. And I'm going to listen. Not as a judge looking for technical perfection, but as someone who wants to honor what your father taught you. Deal? Deal, Ethan whispered. One more thing. Simon pulled out his phone, tapped something, and spoke quietly to a production assistant. Then he looked at Ethan again. Wear the ring. While you perform. Don't put it in your pocket. Wear it. Ethan slipped the gold band onto his right ring finger. It was too big, hanging loose, but he closed his hand into a fist to keep it from falling off. He walked to the piano, sat down on the bench, placed his hands on the keys, that ring catching the stage lights. The theater was silent, waiting. Ethan played the opening notes of a Chopin nocturne, the same piece his father used to play on Sunday mornings while making scrambled eggs. His young fingers moved across the keys with surprising skill, though not perfect technique. There were small mistakes, hesitations. But there was also something else. Something that transcended technical proficiency. There was love in that performance. Grief. Memory. A 12-year-old boy playing for an audience of one who wasn't there anymore. Then he started to sing. An original song. Simple lyrics about Sunday mornings and bad jokes and being brave when everything hurts. Simon stood motionless behind the judge's table. His arms were no longer crossed. His trademark skeptical expression was gone. He was openly crying, something cameras had rarely, if ever, captured. The other judges were crying too. Howie had his head in his hands. Heidi was gripping Sophia's arm. The entire audience was in tears. When Ethan finished, he sat at the piano bench with his hands still on the keys, that ring still on his finger, and looked at Simon. The applause started slowly, then built into a thunderous standing ovation. But Simon raised his hand for silence. Backstage, producers were begging him to continue, but he didn't. "Ethan," Simon said, his voice thick with emotion, "I need to tell you something about courage. I've spent my career being the tough judge. The one who says no. The one who crushes dreams in the name of honesty. And I told myself that was courage too, having the guts to tell people the truth." He paused, collecting himself. "But watching you walk onto this stage, at 12 years old, 8 months after losing your father, wearing his ring and choosing to honor him by doing the thing that scares you most, that's courage I've never had. That's the kind of bravery your father was teaching you about." Simon looked at the other judges. "I don't need to hear from them. I know what I'm about to do." He walked to his position. The camera zoomed in on his hand hovering over the golden buzzer. "Your father told you to be brave. To do things that scare you. To make the choice to act even when you're afraid. Ethan Miller, you did that tonight. And I'm going to make sure you never have to be afraid on this stage again." His hand slammed down on the golden buzzer. Golden confetti exploded across the stage. The audience erupted. Ethan collapsed onto the piano bench, sobbing. His mother rushed onto the stage and wrapped him in her arms. Terry Crews joined them, embracing them both. But what happened next, no one in the theater, or watching at home, could ever forget. Simon climbed onto the stage, something he almost never did. He walked to where Ethan and his mother stood in a shower of golden confetti. He crouched down to Ethan's eye level. "May I see the ring?" Simon asked quietly. Ethan slipped it off his finger and handed it to Simon with trembling hands. Simon held the simple gold band, turning it in the stage lights. "This ring represents everything your father taught you. Courage. Love. The choice to act. I want you to keep wearing it. Not just today, but every time you perform. Every time you're scared. Every time you need to remember who you're doing this for." He handed the ring back. "Your dad would be so proud of you." Ethan clutched the ring to his chest. "Thank you." Simon stood and addressed the audience one more time. "We do a lot of shows. A lot of auditions. A lot of performances. But sometimes, very rarely, we get reminded why we're really here. It's not about finding the next pop star or the next viral sensation. It's about moments like this. Real courage. Real love. Real people choosing to be brave." He looked directly into camera one. "Ethan Miller, you didn't just win a golden buzzer tonight. You reminded all of us what matters." The confetti continued to fall. The audience continued to applaud. And in the center of it all, a 12-year-old boy held his father's wedding ring and chose, once again, to be brave. Share and subscribe, so this story will never be forgotten. 3 months later, Ethan performed in the semi-finals wearing his father's ring. He didn't win the competition, but that was never the point. After the show, Simon had the piano Ethan used during his audition moved to a children's hospital in Ohio. Daniel Miller's old firehouse had partnered with that hospital for years. A plaque on the piano reads, "In memory of Daniel Miller, who taught his son that courage is a choice. Play bravely." Ethan still performs. At school concerts, local events, sometimes at the firehouse where his dad worked. He wears the ring every single time. And Simon Cowell, The judge, known for being tough and uncompromising, keeps a photo in his office. A 12-year-old boy at a piano, golden confetti falling, a father's ring on his finger. The photo's caption, in Simon's handwriting: "The day I remembered why we do this."